and a certified dementia practitioner in private practice, serving families throughout New Jersey, Florida, Boston, and Huntsville, Alabama since 2007. She brings over 30 years of experience, business experience, to the Olive Group, LLC, with which she is now affiliated. As a former business executive, Ms. Harris is aware of the billions of dollars lost each year due to family members interrupting their careers, leaving or resigning due to overwhelming caregiving responsibilities. Ms. Harris is sensitive to the needs and frustrations of the respective employees trying to serve two masters, yet lacking the support to fully serve either. As an aging life care advanced professional, Ms. Harris' objective is to better assess the maze of aging services, identify the correct services needed, and provide a customized premium care plan for each client in a cost-effective, time-efficient manner. So Gladys, if you're there, welcome, and we look forward to your talk.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. So what I'm going to talk about this morning is how do we deal with aging and where will it take place post-COVID-19? For the past 3 months, we've been grappling with an entirely new actor on the economic field, and that's the coronavirus. So, you know, how transmissible is it? What's the fatality rate across different population groups? What policies are best at slowing its spread, and how do they vary by country, state, region, county, town? When is a vaccine going to appear? Anyone who claims to have the answers to any of those is just guessing at this point. We don't know. It's every day is a new day when it comes to this pandemic. But it has significantly impacted aging and how, at first it was primarily residents in skilled nursing facilities and in assisted living communities. They were really being hit hard, but now because of the lack of use of personal protective equipment, even something as simple as face masks, and maintaining social distance, we've seen that a much younger population is now presenting with COVID-19, and some of them are dying. So the concern there is that you can be a carrier and not have any symptoms. I've lost 5 clients since March due to COVID deaths. None of them presented with any symptoms. All of them were healthy. The only thing wrong with 4 of them was that they had early stages of dementia. They tested positive. They were dead within, in the case of one person, within 4 hours of the diagnosis. And in the case of the other 4, they were dead within 3 days. So, and these people were, the youngest was 67 and the oldest was 84. So, you know, a little bit of a span in age, but the fact is they were healthy. They didn't have diabetes, they didn't have high blood pressure, they had no heart problems, no Parkinson's, none of that. They just had early stages of dementia. So it's a cause for concern. One of the first things I would like everyone here to think about, and I believe you already had Yale Houtman come and speak with you, right? The elder law attorney. Has he's already presented, or he has not presented yet?
Yes, he has.
Okay, so I'm sure Yale spoke with you about the importance of having current legal documents in place, having a current will, having a current power of attorney, having a current healthcare directive. Those are like the basic legal tools that you need to have in place, and they need to be up to date. Part of that as well, even though it's not a legal document, is something that's called a care plan. And I had provided a handout that it will be made available to you electronically, where there is a sample from the CDC of what a form that you can use to make your own care plan. But basically what a care plan is it summarizes your health conditions and your current treatments. So it looks at things like, what's your health status today? What medications are you on? Who are your healthcare providers? Who are your emergency contacts? What are your end of life plans or thoughts? The reason that this is an important document is your health changes all the time. Someone in your family, or if you live by yourself, when you get taken to a hospital, they need to know what you were thinking, what's going on with you. In most cases, you're not going to be able to convey that information to them. So by having this document up to date, and I encourage my clients to just keep it on the refrigerator, because when emergency people come to your house, believe it or not, that is one of the places that they look to see where you have any of your medical documents. So just keep it on the refrigerator or keep it somewhere where it's obvious, and they can just take it with them in the ambulance, or your family members can take it with them when they have to take you for medical care. I will tell you that the majority of people that were taken to the emergency rooms with COVID-19 had no care plan with them. They did not have any documents in terms of what their end of life decisions were. And I'm sure you recall reading in the paper how emergency room physicians really struggled, and the ethics committees at the hospitals really struggled with, if it gets down to the point where we're running out of ventilators, who gets a ventilator? What's going to be the criteria? And think about it. You're in the emergency room. You may have decided that you did not want to be resuscitated no matter what, but you have nothing there. You have no document with you to let the emergency room staff know that. So it's important that we have things like these care plans in place and ready to go with us, so that when you get to the emergency room and you cannot speak for yourself, and in the case of COVID, your family members were not allowed in the emergency room, you were in there by yourself, at least the staff has something to go on in terms of what your wishes were regarding how they should proceed should it come to an end of life decision. So it's not something that we like to think about, but it's a reality that we have to that we have to confront. All right, so let's talk about some housing options. I'm sure in the whole time I've been practicing, I've never received a call from anyone saying, Gladys, I would like to move into assisted living. The seniors that I work with all want to stay in their house, and I respect that. I do everything I can to enable them to remain in their home, provided that we can make it safe, provided that we can provide them with the level of care, medical care, and any other care that they might need can properly be delivered in their house. Because the majority of my clients are private pay, they have the financial resources to bring in and make changes to their home that will enable them to stay right there, aging until they literally take their last breath, which is what the majority of them want to do. Their adult children, not so much. When they get referred to me and in the conversations that they initially have with me, they feel that their parents should move into assisted living. And I always ask them, have you discussed this with your parents? How do they feel about that? And then they kind of step back a bit and they go, well, not really, or I have, and I told them that I think that this is the best place for them. So I always make it a point to hear out the adult children that get referred to me, and definitely hear out their parents or the older family member that I will be ultimately working with. My practice only works with adults. They're either aging, developmentally delayed, have incurred a traumatic brain or a spinal cord injury. I don't work with children at all. My youngest client currently is 28 years old. He's my client because of a traumatic brain injury. My oldest client is 102, and I have to tell you, she's a pip. She definitely keeps me on my toes. She lives on a 44-acre farm in Warren County. It took me almost a year to convince her to wear a monitoring device because it's not uncommon when I visit her, usually on Fridays, to find her when the weather's nice, trolling around on her farm on her John Deere tractor. And I told her, I said, look, I respect the fact that you like to be out here and you're very independent, but if anything, God forbid, was to happen to you, you could be out here a long time before anyone found you. So if for nothing else, for my peace of mind, please wear a monitoring device. So she finally agreed. She has a monitoring device that's monitored via GPS, and that has worked out great. And I can tell you, I sleep much better at night knowing that when Emily is out on her tractor, if anything happens, someone is going to be able to get to her within a relatively short period of time. So if you plan on staying in your house, that is not only a big decision, but you have to plan to be able to stay there safely and to maintain the quality of life that you envision having as you get older, and to maintain the independence that you want to have as you get older. So some of the things I want you to think about and some of the things I want you to do is, number one, clear the clutter. You probably don't see it. One way to look at it differently is to take a photo of every room in your house, and it's going to pop out right quickly in terms of where the clutter is. So start clearing the clutter. It takes, on average, 12 to 18 months to completely clear out a house of clutter after there's been any type of an event. Yes, I'm sure you're all familiar with the television programs that talk about hoarders, and you see these people come in and do a wholesale scoop of everything that's in that individual's home, and you see the stress and the anxiety that that individual goes through. That doesn't work. What happened? That psychologically, that is not a good thing. I will tell you, I've had clients that are hoarders. We worked with professional organizers to help them clear out the clutter. It did take us several months to make that happen because you have to have the buy-in of the individual. Yes, their families are going nuts because they want all of the junk removed, but the individual doesn't see it as junk. They're emotionally, they're very tied into that, and it takes time to work through that. With one client, we found over $37,000 worth of stocks, checks, cash, stuffed into magazines. It was underneath cushions in furniture. If we had taken that wholesale approach of just scooping all of the newspapers and magazines up and dumping it into a dumpster, that money would have gone into the trash. So I am not a proponent at all of using that method. I have no problem sitting with the client and going magazine by magazine and flipping them upside down and having all the little cards and stuff fall out. And I guarantee you, in there, there's going to be mail that they forgot about, and there's going to be insurance checks, stock certificates, a number of financial documents that have value that need to be put aside and put in a safe deposit box or cashed in or something done with them. So clear the clutter. Clutter is also a safety issue. It's very easy to trip, lose your balance if you bump into something and fall. And as you get older, your bones become somewhat brittle. You're prone to have a fracture or a complete break that may or may not heal well and may require you to have surgery to get it repaired. That surgery could keep you from staying home, depending on how well you recuperate. After you have the surgery, more than likely you're going to go into a subacute rehab facility for a couple of weeks. They will help you get stronger, provide you with ongoing physical therapy. Depending on how well you do, you may be able to return back home. If you're not able to return back home, you may have to go into an assisted living or a skilled nursing facility. That's not what you wanted. You wanted to stay home. So in order to enable you to stay home, get rid of all that junk. All right. Keep high items in a convenient place. I'm not very tall. I'm 5 feet tall. So stuff up in high cabinets has always been a challenge for me. As you get older, your ability to easily reach declines. It's safer for you to move things down that you frequently use to a lower level cabinet. Don't get up on a chair. Don't climb up on one of those little cheap step stools. If you insist on using something that's in a higher shelf, invest in a step stool that is going to not only sustain your weight, but that has a barrier in front to keep you from falling off. So, Home Depot, Lowe's are great places for those. Be sure that you keep your house well lit. Seniors have a higher need for natural light, and the older you get, your eyes change. So you need more light, not only to read, but you need more light to be able to clearly see what's going on around you. So, and light is important as well because it affects our circadian rhythms. And you may not pay attention to it now, but I guarantee you, as you get older, that becomes a big deal. And that is what's going to enable you to, stay focused. It affects your cognition. Those are important things. Consider hiring a company, and I'm just going to use this as an example. Someone like Mr. Handyman, which, yes, it's a franchise, and actually the franchise for Northern New Jersey, and when I say Northern New Jersey, I'm talking about from Somerset County North. That franchise is excellent. In fact, they've been written up in the Wall Street Journal and in the New York Times. They provide soup to nuts help in terms of providing ongoing maintenance, or if you just need someone to come in and do a specific task. All of the people that work for them are employees. They're bonded, they're insured. They're professionals in the services that they provide, and they do a really good job. So while I'm sure all of you are very handy, there's going to come a point where, I'll use arthritis in your hands as an example, makes it difficult to manage a lot of the power tools that maybe you worked with in the past. So that's a safety issue. Don't put yourself in that position. An accident with a power tool can be dangerous for you. I want you to stay home. That's where you want to be. So think about bringing in a company like Mr. Handyman to help you out. Or if you have adult children that are handy and they're local, ask them to help you out. I will tell you though, the majority of my clients that have adult children that live nearby, their adult children are so busy with their own lives and with their own careers and with their own children that the reason they bring me on board is because they don't have the time to take care of all of the stuff that's going on with their parents. So something to think about. Being able to keep your property up and keeping the clutter out and keeping things in repair definitely adds to the property value. At some point, your house is going to go up, is going to be put on the market for sale. So that's important. Something else I want you to think about it's a good idea to reach out to an architect or an interior designer that are certified in aging in place. They can help make some very cost-effective modifications to the interior of your home where it's done in such a way that it doesn't look like an old person lived there, because when it comes time to sell your house, no one wants to buy a house where an old person lived. And I hear that all the time. It drives me crazy, but I hear it all the time. Working with a certified aging in place architect and/or interior designer enables you to have modifications made in such a way that they do not look like the modification was done to accommodate a wheelchair, or the grab bars that they put in do not look like those tubular grab bars that I see in Home Depot and in Lowe's. There are a number of things that can be done that are aesthetically pleasing and yet very safe-minded to enable you to stay in your residence as long as you want. And they don't detract from the future value of your house, which is what you want. You want to be able to get top dollar when it comes time to sell your house. All right. Consider getting help with some daily services, whether that's grocery delivery or errand services or transportation services. I'm sure you use online banking or online shopping. Virtual health now is a big deal. It's been interesting to see the significant increase in telehealth and telemedicine, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So while you're still home, there may come a point where you need to have help in the house to help you with things like your activities of daily living. So that could be to help you get dressed if your balance is a little bit off, having an aide come in and to help you with that, help you with meal preparation, or help you with laundry, or take you to physician appointments, or to get a haircut or go shopping. All of that can be done with a home health aide. Be very careful about home health aides. I only work with a small handful of agencies that are licensed, bonded, and insured. All of their aides are employees. That's important. And all of their aides are licensed. That's important. And all of their aides are well trained and receive ongoing training throughout the year. So the average cost, the average hourly cost for a home health aide in Northern New Jersey ranges anywhere from $25 to $32 an hour. It's not reimbursed by Medicare, it's all private pay. If you're a veteran, you could apply for the Veterans Aid and Attendance Benefit, and that money can be used to help offset the cost of a home health aide. If you have long-term care insurance can help offset the cost of a home health aide. It's an investment worth making. It's an investment that enables you to stay in your house like you want to for as long as you possibly can. I know there are a number of people that hire what I call the church lady, and those are private individuals. They're not licensed, they're not bonded, they're not insured, but they're cheap. They're usually anywhere from $13 to $18 an hour, and they may come recommended by your neighbors or family members. They're dangerous to hire. And the reason I say that is that you incur all of the liability when you hire privately. The IRS sees you as an employer, and they expect you to take withholding out. These people like to get paid in cash, so that's a problem. If they get hurt on your property, or they hurt you on your property, or they damage anything, or steal from you, you are liable in all of those cases. That's not a good situation. Because you're paying them in cash, you have no paper trail. So if you, at some point, have to apply for Medicaid, you have no way of proving how much money you have spent for care that you've received at home because you don't have any canceled checks. Or if you have a canceled check, usually they want the check made out to cash. And even if you put in the reference line, home care for Mary Jane, Medicare, when they review your financial documents, they may not accept that. In fact, there was a case, I don't know if it's been resolved. I know that it was going on as of a few weeks ago, where a man had spent over, I want to say it was $120,000 on home care for his parent, applied for Medicaid, and was denied because he paid privately for the home care, and Medicare, which is who reviews your Medicaid application, was not accepting it. And so they were serving him with a penalty period where his parents could not fully qualify for Medicaid for X number of months. So I know that's going through our court system. How that comes out, who knows? But that is not uncommon. And I want you to think about that. You can avoid that by working with a licensed, bonded, and insured home care company. And don't, my contact information is the last item on the reference material that you'll be getting. Don't hesitate to shoot me an email or a call and say, I heard you talk at on the 7th of July, and I have a question regarding blah, blah, blah. I will be more than happy to try to address any questions you have and kind of keep you from getting into trouble. I want you all to do well, and I want to make sure that you get the right type of care regardless of where you might be. Home care comes in several flavors. There's personal care and there's companion care. Personal care are the people that help you. They actually touch you. They can help you transfer from your bed to a wheelchair, or they can prepare meals for you. They can help you with toileting or getting dressed, or grooming if you need that. Companion care and personal care, the aide has to be licensed. In the state of New Jersey, that is a requirement. And they come from licensed, bonded, and insured companies. Companion care, no. Companion care is just what it says. It's someone that will provide you with reminders about taking your medication. In the state of New Jersey, the only person that can actually touch any medication that you take, be it a pill or pour out liquid, is the nurse. It cannot be a home health aide. If they're doing that, that's a problem. It's dangerous. They can lose their license and they can be fined, and their agency can be fined. So just be very careful. You guys are all smart guys. You all came from a wide array of different careers. I know you're not afraid to ask questions, and you're going to continue to ask questions until you get an answer that you're comfortable with. This is a time I'm encouraging you to ask questions until you're comfortable with the answer. Okay, let's talk about other housing options that are not aging in place housing options. Let's talk about continuing care, retirement communities, or lifespan communities. Those are becoming very popular. They're very profitable for the companies that have them. They're expensive. And while, yes, they do provide different levels of care, I want you to very carefully review the contract before you sign anything or before you provide any deposit money. The majority of them have you invest anywhere from $200,000 to almost $500,000. And should you decide after you move in that this is not the place for you, yes, you will get your money back, but you're not going to get it back right away. And there are a number of lawsuits against continuing care retirement communities, or known as CCRCs, where people have put down their money, been there a few months, decided it wasn't for them for whatever reason, have moved out, and have waited in many cases over a year to get their money back. Yeah, that's an expensive mistake to make. Most of the continuing care retirement communities provide independent living. They provide assisted living. They may or may not provide memory care, and they may or may not provide skilled nursing. Usually if they provide skilled nursing, it's a very small unit. So in theory, by moving into a continuing care community, as your health needs change, you're able to step down. So you initially move into independent living, and until you can no longer safely take care of yourself, or if you hire an aide through a home health care company to help you, once that aide can no longer provide the level of care that you need to be safe, and you have to either step down into assisted living or into skilled nursing, it's good to be able to stay in the same community, but you're paying an awful lot of money to do that, because in addition to that huge deposit that you had to put down, you still have a monthly fee that you're charged. It's usually in the neighborhood, when you look at the rent on your unit as well as the level of care and your medications, you know, $9,000 to $10,000 a month is not uncommon. So think about it. Assisted living is another. Going back to the CCRCs and COVID, they actually did a better job with protecting their residents than the assisted living and the skilled nursing facilities. And the reason they did that is they do a really good job of providing educational programs, exercise programs, nutritional oversight, medication management on an ongoing basis to their residents. And that clearly paid off with COVID, because they kind of treated COVID like they treat residents when it's flu season time. You know, they have protocols that they put in place to make sure that things are sanitized properly, that everyone gets their flu shots. If you're not feeling well, they make sure that that's taken care of. And that same mindset and those same protocols is what enabled them to not have the high number of COVID cases that assisted living and skilled nursing facilities had. So that is a good thing. Most CCRCs don't accept Medicaid. So that can be a problem. Or if they do accept Medicaid, you have to be there several years paying privately before you're eligible for Medicaid. That may not work out so well. All right, let's talk about assisted living. Assisted livings, some of them are in CCRCs, many of them, and I'll use this only as an example, Sunrise, Brandywine, those are all assisted living communities that are standalone. So they have their same business model that every one of their buildings is supposed to follow. However, how it's executed is not always the same. So even though you may have a Sunrise in the town where you live, and there may be a Sunrise a few towns over, yes, they have the same business model that they follow, but the two personalities of those Sunrises and how care is delivered is not going to be the same. So part of my job, if you can no longer stay in your house, is I almost have to be a matchmaker for the elderly when it comes to finding appropriate housing options. And I'm going to, again, use Sunrise as an example. Just because you have Sunrise in your neighborhood doesn't mean that that's the right Sunrise for you. My job is to figure out what it is that you like, don't like, what your interests are, what your health status is, and then find a community that can complement that so that you will do well. I don't want you leaving your house, moving into an assisted living community, and it not being a good fit. It's just not worth it. It's, even though it's a huge psychological mind shift in terms of leaving the house that you've had for umpteen years and moving into a community living environment like assisted living, it's important that it be the right place from the get-go. Now, assisted living communities had problems with COVID. They're still having problems with COVID. A lot of families remove their parents from assisted living because the assisted living did not do a good job of protecting its residents from getting COVID. That's scary, especially when you've got parents in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. Their health may or may not be compromised. You don't have to present with symptoms to test positive for COVID, as the example that I gave you with the 5 clients that I lost. So those families remove their family member from assisted living. In some cases, they're still paying the monthly bill with the hopes that once COVID is better under control, their parents can move back in. While their parents are living with them, they've had to hire home health aides to come and help them, or in some cases have had to stop working to take care of their parents. And depending on what the medical condition is of their parents, their family member may not be equipped to do that. And it is not working out well. It's very stressful. There's a lot of resentment that's building. The people who did remain in assisted living, my heart goes out to them because they are experiencing a high degree of depression and anxiety because of the isolation. They can't see their families. You know, the state of New Jersey within the past couple of weeks just allowed visits to people in assisted living and skilled nursing facilities, but you can only see your family member once a week. And I'm talking in-person, face-to-face visits. Everyone has to wear a mask. You have to be at least 6 feet away from each other. All the visits take place outside. No one is allowed in the building. So depending on the weather, you may or may not be able to see your family member. The visits are scheduled and tightly controlled. There is always a staff member within a few feet of you while you're visiting your family members, so you have no privacy. I visited one of my clients yesterday who was in an assisted living community, and I was just so annoyed by the fact, first of all, we were both wearing masks, so my voice was muffled, her voice was muffled. She wears hearing aids. I have a muffled voice. I'm 6 feet away from her. She can't really read my lips, and she's having a hard time hearing me. Our visits were restricted to 15 minutes. In some assisted living facilities, the visits are 30 minutes. There is no standard in terms of how long the visit can be, but only 2 people at a time maximum can visit with a resident, and it can only take place once a week. Some of the assisted living communities would not allow visits to be scheduled unless the power of attorney approved the visitor. So I want you to think about that. Everyone on this call is cognitively intact. You're all competent. You're all more than capable of making your own decisions. How would you feel if whomever your power of attorney is, who is only supposed to come up to bat when you can no longer speak for yourself, how would you feel if that individual is the one who determines who can visit you? It did not go over well. The first time I encountered that, I spoke with my client on the phone and I said, "Are you aware that your power of attorney has to approve who your visitors are?" He said, "No." I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, that's not going to work." I said, "No, it's not going to work." So the more I thought about it, the more, you know, how sometimes you just hear something and it doesn't settle well with you. So I called the ombudsman's office and I spoke with the ombudsman and I shared what my experience was. And she said, no, power of attorney has nothing to do with it. If the individual is competent and is capable of making their own decisions, they determine who can visit them, not someone else in their family. I said, fine. So I went back to the assisted living with that information. They said, no, that's our policy. And I said, well, I think your policy is going to change because I'm filing a complaint with the ombudsman's office. And according to the rules set out by the Department of Health and the state, nothing in there says that the power of attorney is who calls the shots in terms of who can visit any resident. So anyway, that took place 3 weeks ago, and you know, it's been resolved. But my job is to advocate for my clients, and when you're in an assisted living community under today's environment, where you have no way to get out, no one can come in to see you. Your communication with your family is either via telephone, or if you have a smart device using Skype or Zoom or some other application, you're limited. You're kind of stuck, and you're depending on people on the outside to help you out. So I don't know how long that's going to go on. I don't see these rules changing anytime soon regarding visitation and assisted living. But that's the environment that we're living in right now with assisted living and skilled nursing facilities. And I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the fact that we're in an environment where you can't leave your room. All of your meals are in your room. You cannot interact with any of the other residents in your facility. You can only see your family member or visitors one time per week for a very short period of time. It's not in an environment where you can have any degree of privacy regarding the content of your conversation. I don't think that, I would be very surprised if that was acceptable to the folks on this call. You know, and we don't know when that's going to change. So I want you to think about that in terms of your living options. If you do decide to consider assisted living at some point, I want you to visit, both with an appointment and without an appointment. I want you to speak with some of the residents that are there and get their take on it. I want you to have a meal while you're there so you can test the food. I want you to review the contract really well and what all the costs are. And let me explain why I say that. The monthly cost in assisted living is based on several factors. You're billed X amount of dollars for your room. On top of that, you have a level of care that is determined by the facility, not by you and not by your doctor. It's determined by the staff, the medical staff at the facility. You also have a cost for medication, which is determined by not only the number of meds that you take, but how often during the day you take them. And you may or may not have other costs regarding laundry. Some places include doing your laundry once a week, other places charge you. So even though they may say that our rooms start at $6,000 or $5,000 a month, your loaded cost at the end of the month is more in the neighborhood of $9,000 to $10,000, sometimes $11,000. So I want you to read the contracts carefully before you sign anything. If they refuse to give you the contract to review, that's not where you want to be. And I encourage you to take the contract and meet with your attorney and have them review it with you as well, preferably with an elder law attorney. Elder law attorneys do a really great job on reviewing contracts for all of these assisted living, continuing care, skilled nursing facilities. They read the fine print really well, and they do a great job of making sure you understand what you're getting into. So yes, they're designed to be aesthetically pleasing. They're built and decorated to appeal to the adult children, who are the ones that are usually out shopping for the next place where their parents are going to live. I'm not as concerned with how well appointed they are or how aesthetically pleasing they look. I'm more concerned with the quality of the care that they deliver, what their staffing ratios are, how they deliver care. Do they provide things like physical therapy on an ongoing basis? And if yes, how long is that? Some places provide physical therapy 5 minutes per day. What can you accomplish in 5 minutes? Yes, if you've just had major surgery, 5 minutes could be a long time depending on what you had done. That is not a place that I would ever recommend someone consider staying in. I have to look at the whole picture. I have to look at their staffing, the training that the staff gets. Let's say that you have Parkinson's or you have multiple sclerosis. Those take a different level of care, a different type of care. It's important that the staff at whatever place you're looking at is well trained on taking care, delivering care to people who have Parkinson's or MS. So, the marketing people do a great job of selling their facility. I appreciate that. I'm more concerned with what goes underneath that you're going to get, that you will deal with every day. So that's the care, the food, the nutrition, how well trained the staff is, what the ratio of staff to resident is. The higher number of staff to resident, the better for you. That doesn't always happen though. All right. Discharge planning. Not many people are going to the hospital now because they're scared of getting infected with COVID. I get that. But if you do have to go to the hospital, your discharge plan will be put in place, or the work for it will start literally the day that you check into the hospital. That's usually done by the social worker assigned to you. When it comes time for you to be discharged, they will provide you and or your family member, usually with a 1 or 2 page list of places. At most, they might be in alphabetical order that provide subacute rehab, because most people, especially seniors, very seldom get discharged from the hospital to go back home. They get discharged from the hospital to go to subacute rehab, and then depending on how well they do in subacute rehab, they may be able to go back home. It's important that you go to the right subacute rehab. They're not all the same. Subacute rehab is very profitable. Medicare pays 100% for the first 20 days. From day 21 to day 100, they pay at 80% and you pay the balance. Very few people make it to 100 days in subacute rehab. Because it's profitable, most assisted living facilities and all skilled nursing facilities offer subacute rehab. It's important that you select the one that's best for you. And I will tell you, you're not going to know who that is by the lists that you're going to get from the discharge planner. And they are prohibited from saying this place is better than this place for your specific need. So again, if you find yourself in that situation, call me and I will be glad to step you through it and help you find the right subacute rehab facility for you. Usually what family members do is they look at that list and they look at it from a geographical perspective. They go, oh, this place is close to my house, or it's close to mom and dad's house. Let's send them there. Geography should have nothing to do with it. And it's not about what's convenient for your son, daughter, spouse. It's what's going to provide you with the best level of care to help you get rehabilitated enough to be able to safely return home. And that place may not be the place that's closest to your house. So don't hesitate to call me if you find yourself in that situation. I will be glad to help step you through it and narrow the list to a place that's better suited to whatever's going on with you. All right. Nursing homes. Nursing homes have not done well with COVID. They're still not doing well. If you find that you or a family member has no choice but to go into a nursing home because your medical needs are that great that they cannot be safely met in another environment, meaning assisted living, I want you to be very careful about the nursing homes. Medicare, a good place to start is the Medicare website that does an assessment of nursing homes. It's called Nursing Home Compare. And you can put in a zip code and it'll tell you all the nursing homes in that zip code. It will also rate them from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. Don't be fooled just because a place is rated a 5. And the ratings will take place over, they look at different things. They look at how well they deliver medical care, what their staffing is, any complaints that they've had, any penalties that they have had. Take the time to read the reports, which are part of that website for each nursing home, because it'll provide you a detailed report based upon the last inspection that was done, and they get inspected yearly, what deficiencies were found, how long it took them to get fixed. Sadly, and I'm going to just use a nursing home in Sussex County where they found 17 bodies in a shed in the beginning of COVID. That place had been rated a 2. I've been in practice since 2007. It had poor ratings back to then, and not much changed. But yet people put their family members there because it was geographically convenient, and they accepted Medicaid literally coming in the door. That's something else I want you to think about when you apply for assisted living. Many of them will accept Medicaid, but not initially. You will have to pay privately anywhere from 2 years to 5 years, depending on the assisted living. So make sure that you clearly understand that and that you get it in writing in terms of what their Medicaid wait window is, because that's going to be important. All right, let's talk about hospice and palliative care. They're not the same. Hospice is prescribed by your physician. It's usually done when there's no longer any curative measures that can be done to help you. So it's about pain management, and it's about being able to live whatever time you have left, be it 6 months, or I've had clients that were on hospice for 2 years and then got booted out because they were too healthy. They no longer met the hospice criteria. And they lived, I'm thinking of the most recent one, he lived an additional 18 months after he got booted out of hospice. So you get really good care when you're on hospice, but it's geared towards pain management, not they're not trying to cure whatever it is that's going on with you. Palliative care is different. Palliative care is, it's used as part of treating the entire disease process. So you have a team of physicians and medical people that come together to make sure that the care that you're getting is the optimal care that you could possibly get, and is managing your pain and enabling you to live as long as you can live. There's nothing, I think in the United States, people misunderstand hospice. They feel that if you agree to go on hospice, or if you ask your physician to place you on hospice, it means you're giving up. It doesn't mean you're giving up. No one is giving up on you. The only thing that's going to change is that you're not going to get medication to try to cure whatever's going on with you, but you will get great care to make sure that you're not in pain, which is what you want. There is a special program for veterans who need hospice care. And sadly, most companies that provide hospice care, their staff isn't really trained on working with veterans. 1 in 4 Americans are veterans. That's the statistic today. And only about 42% of those are registered with the VA. The rest of them are not registered with the VA, and they're getting health care in a number of other areas. Vets have different needs. They have a lot of psychological issues. They have a lot of PTSD issues. I'm a vet, and I'm always surprised at people don't understand what it's like when you're in an area where no one wants you there and you're in a war zone. It definitely changes you, and it changes you for a long time, and it manifests itself in ways that you're not prepared for. And that's even becomes more so as you get older, and especially if you start presenting with any forms of dementia. So having hospice staff that clearly understand the nuances that take place that present with a veteran is critical. So there's a hospice veteran partnership. It's a national cooperative that works hand in glove with the Veterans Administration, and their whole job is to work with hospice companies to make sure that their staff is trained on dealing with veterans who are now going to be on hospice. And that information is in the handout that you have access to, the website for them. All right. Medical aid in dying, that's a law that was passed within the past 2 years in New Jersey. You need to have a physician's prescription to do it. It's a very personal decision. I can tell you it has caused a lot of angst with the clients that I have worked with that have opted to do that. It's an option for end of life, and it's something that if you're thinking about doing it, I want you to sit down and have a chat with your physician about it. If they're not a proponent of it, that's okay. There are physicians that have provided a lot of support to people that are at the point because their health, they just don't want to deal with it anymore. They don't want to deal with the pain anymore. They have a lot of reasons as to why they just no longer want to continue living the way they are. I just want you to know that this is an option, and there is information about it in the handout. So physician appointments. How many of you have been to the doctor within the past month. I mean, face-to-face in the doctor's office. Probably not many of you. Most physicians are doing their appointments via telehealth, telemedicine. That technology has been in place for a couple of years. In the past couple of months, just in New Jersey, there are several million appointments that are taking place every week via telemedicine and telehealth. The technology for it is pretty good. Zoom actually is HIPAA compliant. So there are a number of physicians that use Zoom to conduct those appointments. If you do have to go to the doctor's office, when you make the appointment, make sure that you understand what the new rules are. Obviously, you're going to have to wear a mask. You may not just be able to walk in. You may have to call when you get to the building, and they will call you while you're sitting in your car and say, okay, Paul, we're ready for you, come on in. No one else is going to be in the waiting room. The staff that takes care of you is going to probably be suited up in personal protective equipment. Definitely if you're going to the dentist, they are all suited up. And going to the dentist has become a very different experience in terms of how that's handled. Even for something like cleaning, you'll be given, it's like a mouth dam because they can't expose themselves to any overspray, even though they're going to be wearing a mask and a shield, head covering, booties, gloves, and a gown. They still can't risk it. And the cleaning that has to take place in between each patient is intense. So going to the doctor has significantly changed. I want to talk about mental health. And last year, 2 of my clients committed suicide. Both of them were men. They both shot themselves. Men have a very high incidence for suicide, and they do so in a much more violent way than women, and they don't fool around. If you don't feel comfortable talking with your family about some of the things that are challenging you, there are suicide hotlines that you can call. You can always call me. I'm always available. I will always be available to you. Nothing is bad enough that killing yourself is the right option. And I know it's easy to go to a dark place and feel that this is the best or the only option you have. Before you do that, at least call me. I'm going to be really pissed if you guys decide to pop yourselves off and didn't reach out for help. I'm serious about that. There is help available out there, and I will help you get that help. I promise you. All right. The last thing I want to talk about is intimacy and sex. Seems weird for this call, right? But believe it or not, that's changed. You have been in your house for the past 3.5 months with your spouse and or partner. You probably have not gone out a whole lot. You've learned things about each other that you probably felt that you didn't need to know. And during that time, if you had a spouse and you're in a long-term monogamous relationship, having intercourse is fine. And having intercourse without protection is fine. You're not worried about unwanted pregnancies at this point in your life. If you're in a relationship that's an open relationship, or you're in a relationship where you have more than one partner, taking any of the lifestyle drugs, be it Levitra, Cialis, Viagra, does nothing for sexually transmitted infections. The only thing that you can do to help in that regard is to use a condom. I have 3 grown children. Never in a million years did I think I would have to have the sex talk with any of my clients. And it's usually with their adult children that literally freak out because their parents or parent are thinking or having intimate relationships with a partner that may or may not be their spouse. Just because you're aging doesn't mean that that desire goes away. All I'm asking you to do is to make sure that you take care of yourself. At this point in your life, as I said, unwanted pregnancy is not something that you're probably worried about, but sexually transmitted infections is something that you need to pay attention to. They're out there. I will tell you, statistically, seniors, and by that I mean people 65 and above, have a higher incidence of STIs than the age group that's between 18 and 35. So there's a lot of active seniors out there. God bless them. I'm happy for them. Just make sure you take care of yourself. All right. So that's all I had to cover. Questions?
Oh, okay. At this point, we'll use our usual raise your blue hand protocol. And if you don't know what that is, I'll just say very quickly, at the bottom of your screen, you must click the participants icon. Or if you're on an iPad, it will be at the top of your screen. You might have to hover your cursor there to make it show. And that pops up the participants list on the right, probably. And there is a blue hand at the bottom of it. There's a row of brightly colored icons. If you want to ask a question, you must click that, and then you go to toward the top of the list and a blue hand appears. So that's what raising your blue hand means. And I'm going to choose people in turn to ask their questions. And that list shows people in the order that they raised their hand. So go ahead and raise your hand. And John Tomaszewski actually raised his hand about 20 minutes ago. So he's
Okay.
He's
So
been.
John, how can I help you?
Wait a second. Okay, I have to ask him to unmute. So John, unmute. Go.
Yeah, there we go. I didn't want to forget the question. That's why.
I get
The question was, you said that nobody can give medicine to an elderly person. What if it's your parents or your spouse or that type of thing? Can you then give?
Let me clarify that. Yes, a family member can always provide their family member with medication, or a close friend can. If you're working with any type of a home health aide, no,
Okay.
they cannot. Unless
Thank you.
you're a nurse, no. But good question. Thank you.
Okay, Boppy, you're next, and you must unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question about if you are in Medicare and you are in assisted living or even at home, and is there Medicare? How does the transition from Medicare to Medicaid happen? I'm a little confused. Is
Okay.
there a time that Medicare does not pay and you Medicaid chip in, or is it?
So
Understand?
that's a good question. Medicare normally does not pay for assisted living or home health care. In fact, Medicare doesn't pay for assisted living at all. If you have been in the hospital and you get discharged, as I said, you will probably go to subacute rehab. That's paid by Medicare for a certain period of time. Once that period of time ends, you are responsible for 100% of that bill. If you apply for Medicaid, in order to qualify for Medicaid, Medicaid is an income-based program. It was designed for the indigent. And given the cost of today's healthcare, it doesn't take very long to run out of money. So you can't have more than $2,000 in assets at any given point. There is a 5-year look back period. And I will tell you, don't try to game the system. Medicare will find every penny that you have spent. You will have to submit all of your financial documents to them. And if when they review them, if they don't feel that you have provided all of the financial detail that they're looking for, they're going to come back to you and you'll have to provide additional proof, including copies of canceled checks. So think about it. In today's environment, we don't get canceled checks. Everything is done electronically. So if you think that at some point you or a family member may have to apply for Medicaid because you're running out of money, which at the cost of what assisted living or a skilled nursing facility is, that's going to happen fairly quickly. I suggest that you start making electronic copies of all of your checks and put them in a file on your computer that you can easily print out and provide when you do your Medicaid application. I realize that's a nosebleed, but you're going to have to do it. And if you want the bank to do it, they'll do it, but they will charge you for it, and it's not cheap. And it doesn't happen quickly because that's not a priority for them. So if you're going to apply for Medicaid, I encourage you to work with an elder law attorney to do that. And the reason I say that is that, yes, they're going to charge you a fee to do it, but the application will be done right the first time. Every I will be dotted, every T will be crossed, every piece of possible documentation that Medicaid might need will be submitted. And your chances of having the application go through the first time are much higher. And that's what you want. When you run out of money, you want Medicaid to start paying right away. You don't want it to drag on for months and months while you're trying to figure out how are you going to pay for assisted living or a skilled nursing facility. So did that answer your question?
So all your asset has to be completely taken care of. If you have a will that says, give some asset to my kids.
Yeah, so you can do that, but it has to be outside of the 5-year window. Because Medicaid they will look at everything that you have done that has to do with money. So if you're thinking of signing your house over to your children, so long as you do it outside of the 5-year window, you're fine. But you don't know when that 5-year window is going to be. So if you're planning on giving your kids your house, signing it over to them, I suggest you do it right away and stay really healthy for the next 5 years. And I don't mean that tongue in cheek. I'm serious. It's as long as you're one day over the 5-year period when you gave something away, you're fine. You're one day under, not good. And the same thing with the $2,000 a month limit. You can't have over $2,000 a month. And I mean, you can't have $2,001 a month. It has to be less than $2,000. So yeah, Medicaid is not the great thing that people think it is. First of all, when you go on Medicaid, I'm gonna use doctors as an example. Right now, you probably have a wide array of physicians that you see. You have a primary care physician, you may have a cardiologist, a neurologist, a gastroenterologist. When you go on Medicaid, you may not have those same doctors because they may not accept Medicaid as a form of payment. And if they don't, and you need that type of care, you have to find a specialist in that area that accepts Medicaid. So it's not a good thing. I mean, it was designed for people who don't have money and need medical care. They will get medical care, they'll get dental care, which right now, that's, if you don't have money and you can't afford to go to a dentist, about the only way that you can get dental care is to apply for Medicaid, because dental care is part of the Medicaid program. Did that answer your question?
I'd like to make one comment about getting electronic copies of checks. I bank at Bank of America, and I have online access to my account. I hope most of you all do too. And when it comes to tax time, I can go to my account and I can download a PDF file for each month. And it has all of the electronic copies of all the checks right there. And I don't have to pay anything extra for it. So for a lot of you, it might just be there if you know that it's there and you know how to download it. Okay.
Yeah.
The next person is Bill Tittle.
Yes, thank you. A quick one, but I think this is a question that a lot of us have. I have no doubt that my memory is going south. I've been to neurologists, several of them, and they say, I'm fine. Well, I'm not fine. And I think the answer for me is habit formation training. Does that mean anything to you? And can you speak to that issue? I mean, I just have to get organized. You know, and when something becomes habitual, you don't have to think about it.
Right. Because your brain kind of sets up a pattern and it goes into almost autopilot. So that's a good tactic. I'm glad that you brought that up. Are you working with a neurologist for that?
No.
Oh, okay. You may want to.
I don't want to go to the hospital, so.
Well, you shouldn't have to go to the hospital with the neurologist. You can meet with them in their office.
Well, in this case, his office is right in the hospital.
Oh, I see. So, yeah, repetition is a good thing as your memory starts to decline. And the sooner you can start consciously putting repetition into whatever it is that you're doing, the better. Because your brain is going to go back and go, oh yeah, we do it this way. So that's important. Good for you.
Thank you. Great talk.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nolan, you're next.
Okay, great talk. Given that all of us want to stay in our homes indefinitely or as long as possible, I'm with that. And the number one cause, at least from the insurance industry standpoint, of disability is slips and falls, since almost all slips and falls take place in your house or in your bathroom or in your driveway. I want to bring it up, and you may have a lot more to say about it, but you can engineer, obviously, special baths, special bathtubs, special showers. It's nice to get the clutter out of the way, but you might also want to make your house slip and fall proof.
Right, which is why I suggested working with an aging in place architect and or interior designer, because they will do that in a cost-effective way that is also not only aesthetically pleasing and meets all of the safety requirements, but that adds value when the time comes to resell your house. So yeah, good point. Thanks for bringing it up.
Okay, at this point, I just noticed it's already 11:35. Time flies when you're having fun. And Gladys has said she's happy to stick around for a little while longer. So I would say that anybody that wants to and needs to leave right now, that's fine. We'll go a little while longer, but not.
I just have one thing to add, Paul, before
Yeah, sure.
off. Um, Normally when clients get referred to me, I don't do any advertising. All of my clients have always come to me via referrals from other professionals. I provide them with a 30-minute complimentary consult. And the reason I do that is by the time people are to the point where they want to reach out to get help, they are so stressed out and so overwhelmed that to bill them for that first 30 minutes when they're trying to get their thoughts together just doesn't work. And it's just easier if we sit down, on the phone or via Zoom or face-to-face and just chat through whatever it is that you're thinking about so we can start putting a plan together. So I bring that up, I make that offer to you, and don't forget, don't piss me off by not calling me, especially if you're thinking or you're having issues about suicide. I'm serious about that. That I want you to call me. I promise you I will help you.
Anyway.
Good. I'd like to make another comment at this point too. Maybe we'll probably just have 5 minutes more of questions because the tug session is going to start pretty soon after that. But before you all leave, let me say I've been in the habit of making videos of our sessions, but I will not make a video of this one. But if Gladys is willing, I will make the audio of the session available privately to you if you want to hear it. There was a lot of important information here, so as long as that's okay with her, I'll do that.
That's fine.
So anyway, let's do a couple more questions here. Griff, you're next.
I noticed that your bookshelf looks remarkably similar to mine.
I laughed because Gladys and I had a conversation about this.
I still
Tell him,
didn't
Gladys.
straighten it out.
My wife's solution is to toss everything, which is sort of like throwing the children out. What's your approach would your approach be to managing treasures?
Depending on what they are, sometimes taking a photo of it and putting it in an incredible, even if you have to do it, having a professional photographer come in and take a photo of something and putting it in just a beautiful album, that's one way to still have the treasure, but not necessarily have the physical object. If it's something that has a lot of monetary value, get it appraised and then determine what you want to do with it and see if your children or other family members are interested in having it. There's nothing wrong with gifting it to them now versus waiting until you pass away. I will tell you, most adult children don't want your stuff.
I'm sure that's the case. The stuff I inherited from my mother is still there because she couldn't throw it out either.
Right.
And I fear we're going to have a lot of books that just have to be tossed because nobody wants them.
Not necessarily. So you may want to think about working with a professional organizer because they can come in and help you sort through and determine what's worth keeping and what's the best way to show it, because you want to honor it. I mean, if it's something that has a lot of sentimental value, honoring it is a wonderful thing to be able to do. But let's face it, how much square footage do you have to honor stuff? So you have to be selective. And a professional organizer will help you do that.
Yeah, along these lines, I would also add, you were talking about uncluttering things so that people will be able to deal with your important possessions more easily. And you didn't make any mention of this, but I assure you, we all have an enormous amount of electronic clutter as well.
Yeah.
And all of our records online, most of our photos are electronic and they're not even printed out anywhere. And you got to give a lot of thought to that well in advance if you want anybody to find it or any of it to last, because it just vanishes. But there's no time. That's a whole hour's conversation right there. So I'm sorry, no time for that. That's not a question. I'm afraid that's an observation. But Marvin Gersten has a question. Go for it, Marvin. You have to unmute yourself, Marv. No, you're still muted.
There it is.
There you go.
Okay. Gladys, thank you. Excellent presentation. Particularly in my circumstance, your talk about discharge plan after surgery. I have to do a hip prosthesis revision surgery in early August. Discussing it with my surgeon, he says you have to go directly home because the previous places that handled, physical therapy aren't doing it anymore, and you have to go home. Well, after one of these kinds of surgeries, you can't put weight on one foot. It's impossible to go home. We called up Kessler, West Orange, where I had been a year and a half ago for the other hip, and they said, not at all. We're doing this. We have plenty of patients. You're going to be perfectly fine. No problem.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming that they're one of you on your list, the Kessler.
They are. I love Kessler. I wish I could have Kessler all over the country. They provide phenomenal rehab. And
Yeah,
that
my experience.
client that I referenced earlier, he's at Kessler. He'll be leaving soon, but they have done an incredible job with him. They're great.
Yeah, we were totally reassured, and I'm glad to hear it from you as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck. Yeah, good luck.
Okay, Miguel, you get the last question.
Hi.
Miguel, you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. What I did. I really appreciate the opportunity for question. My question is more about my mother, who is 91 and healthy, doesn't take any medicine, doesn't see doctors, but her memory is failing, and she is now at the stage where she is subject to tantrums, and every once in a while, has a temper tantrum, and maybe goes to the lawyer and says she's going to change the will or go to the bank. I have a power of attorney. And I'm afraid she's one of these days going to go to the bank and talk somebody into canceling the power of attorney. What's the next step? Is there a guardianship? And she's in New York, by the way, New York City. Is there a guardianship? How do I do this? She lives by herself in a house in Manhattan. And I can't take her out of that house. She'll die. And she won't leave. You'd have to blow her out. But in any case, what do you suggest in my case? How do I control or safeguard? Sorry?
Guardianship is a legal process, and it's two physicians have to independently assess your mom and determine that she is no longer competent. And then their findings will be presented to the court, and the court will determine whether you or someone else can be guardian for her. So when you become a guardian, that individual, in this case your mom, she loses all of her rights.
She has to be willing to go through that process.
No, she doesn't have to be willing, although the court will
get into the two positions.
No, the court will appoint an attorney to represent her, and the attorney will meet with her and explain what guardianship entails. And she's free to say, no, I don't want to do that. That's not for me. I don't need it. And he has to represent that in court. So it's not a fast process. It's an expensive process. It has, ramifications that are hurtful in the family.
Can she stay in her house if she's?
What I was going to suggest is working with a home care company that is that their aides are well trained in working with residents with dementia. And I say dementia instead of Alzheimer's because dementia is like an umbrella.
It is dementia, not Alzheimer's.
Yeah, and so there's different types of dementia, of which Alzheimer's is one. Alzheimer's has become a ubiquitous term when people talk about dementia, and that's wrong, but that's how it is. So enabling her to stay in her home, having a live-in through an agency or 2 12-hour aides through an agency, and make sure that they're well-trained in dementia would be what I would suggest.
Well, would I be able to do that instead of having external aides?
What do you mean external aids? These are external aids.
Would I be able to take care of her from a distance?
Yeah, if you want to move into her apartment in New York, sure. I can guarantee you, I don't think that that's going to be great for your quality of life, which is why I'm suggesting that you consider having aides, even if you have them part-time, where you're there, let's say an aide is there 12 hours during the day and you do the 12 hours at night. I want you to still be a good son. When you become the 100% 24/7 caregiver, you're no longer that good son, even though you want to be. Caregiving for someone with dementia is incredibly hard, and it's going to suck everything out of you.
Tell me about
Your choice, but
Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miguel. I think we have to
Thank you.
wrap it up here. So Don Young, do you want to do the closing ceremonies?
thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you, Gladys, for an excellent talk. We really appreciate it. I know there are a lot of features of what you had to say that are relevant to my wife and myself. And I'm confident that that's true for almost all of our members. Thank you. And I'm sure some of us will be in touch with you if we need some of the services that you mentioned.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Gladys. Wonderful job.